Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is the show where I take a look at every classic Doctor Who story, plus a bunch of big finished audios, one story at a time. And today we are taking a look at the final of the Patrick Troughton audios that this marathon will be covering, which is Lords of the Red Planet. Now, Lords of the Red Planet is interesting in the fact that it was originally going to be in the same slot for the same story slot as The Seeds of Death, but was cancelled mainly for the fact that, as a story, it would be way too complicated and it would have way too much of, basically, it would basically be too complex to do as a story. So what they did is they just made it an audio instead, which, I don't blame him. It works just as well that way as it does as a TV story. Opening the story, we have some really, really good imagery. You have the Doctor, Jamie, and Zoe landing on Mars and really just doing a lot of, we're just having a good time, so don't be annoyed by us. It's a lot of fun is what I'm trying to say. As a story, you get the feeling that everything is there, everything that happens, and as a story, it's still pretty good. You have a lot of really decent starts. You have this mad science experiment by this Zador woman, which is killing quite a lot of her people, very, very easily. And the people that are getting killed, she just doesn't seem to care. In fact, it doesn't matter that they're dying. She has her. She wants her way, and she wants it now. So she's not gonna care if to get her way, she has to kill a lot of people. So basically, a lot of the story is dealt with that, and you have a lot of the Dr. James Zoe don't really get involved. They get watched by one of the other princesses on Mars, and they get hunted down, and they eventually find themselves making it into a laboratory, but that laboratory, they get attacked by, an ice warrior, because we are on Mars before the ice warriors have evolved. So this is essentially going to be Genesis of the Daleks, but with the ice warriors, which is a really good concept, if I say so myself. It, as an episode, we open up pretty well. Everything has its place, and it knows quite what it wants to be, and how it wants to do what it's doing, and that is just really what you can say is Fraser Hines as the Doctor is great, and Wendy Padbury is as good as Zoe as she can be, even though she's not perfect. This is got a really, really good supporting cast. It's got David Warner in it. It's got Charlie Hayes, who plays Death in Master and Love and War, and is great in both. It's a really solid first episode. You get the feeling that things are starting off with a bang, and with this bang, we have everything essentially there to start. So yeah, it's a really good way of opening the serial, with just with this story. So I'm going to give Lords of the Red Planet Episode 1 a perfect 10 out of 10. It is the 5th of February, 2018, and I just finished listening to The Lords of the Red Planet Episode 2, and this one continues on the strengths from the first very, very well, which was pretty surprising for me, because I thought that this story would probably start to peter out after one episode, because that's what often happens with Brian Hill's scripts. At least I've noticed that with things like The Celestial Toymaker and The Smugglers. They have really good premises, but as they go on, they kind of fail as stories overall. So, I am actually very, very happy that Lord of the Red Planet, as a story, at least so far as where I am right now, has been working out to be mostly good. There are a few minor problems, I'd have to say. It's not necessarily... nothing that's really too bad. I think this episode is really, really good at world building. You have the Doctor and company introduced to the problem that a lot of the people on Mars, well, they're dying. Mars is getting colder, and and Earth is starting to become the next planet, though that's not for quite a few thousands, if not millions of years yet. But it's still good to know that you have this is essentially a dying world. You have this underground city, which is really cool, and you have these reptilians and mammals, the Gondorans and the Saurons, who they essentially complement each other. The mammals are essentially dumb. I believe it's the mammals that are becoming converted into reptilians and becoming an ice war. You have this assistant to the professor who is played by Nicholas Briggs. Briggs does a great job in this role, playing the servant. He also played, I think, all the Ice Warriors later on in the story. And you have it's just a great idea overall. You have a lot of stuff done with the Ice Warriors as a concept, which is really, really solid. And the Doctor and Zoe and Jamie and Zoe all essentially have their parts to play, though they haven't really done much yet. You have Jamie wandering off and seeing one of the princesses, who is one of the first times that Jamie is in front of a pretty woman and doesn't actually fall in love with. I think is a really nice twist on his sort of character, because this woman is an alien and he doesn't really do that sort of thing. And then you have Zoe being intelligent as usual. I like the idea that, essentially, the both princesses of Mars, you have Veltrina, and I can't remember the other character's name. It's the one played by Charlie Hayes, who really reminds me of someone, but I can't quite put my finger on it. They're both genetically engineered, by their father, which is interesting. You also have the life drink, which is a really cool concept, where it's I don't know, I think it's basically their sustenance, that they have to drink this stuff or else they're gonna die. And essentially it's that you have the life drink being an interesting subplot for the story. And it'll be interesting to see where it goes. David Warner's in this, and he's great. You also have just the idea that they immediately, the Gondorans immediately can tell the Doctor and Jamie and Zoe, while they're mammals, they're much more intelligent because they're biped. So I think sort of the other mammals are almost like turtles or something, even though turtles are reptiles. It's an interesting. The story's full of interesting ideas, and the episode really takes advantage of its 30-minute runtime to try to flesh out the ideas. Especially, it's let's get these ideas down before we actually get forward into the plot, which is a really nice structure. I really like this story so far. Lords of the Red Planet Episode 2 will get another 10 out of 10, because we are still going quite strong for just for what the story has been. Alright, it is the 6th of February 2018, and I just finished listening to Lords of the Red Planet Episode 3, and this episode is one that continues the streak of really solid episodes, and, it just, as an episode, um, uh, as an episode, it continues to be really, really good. And you this one it keeps introducing a bunch of new ideas. We actually get to see what the life drink um, uh, um, that life drink sort of makes. Um, well, it is sort of this whole thing about being um, the whole thing essentially being a um, it's essentially a drug. It's almost like it gets the Gondorans high, and this one does a lot of interesting things with the Ice Warriors. Zoe makes a friend in Aslor who is essentially going to be the first Ice Lord, um, but he's almost Frankenstein monster together, which is again another interesting idea. Unlike, but this is actually a Frankenstein's monster that sort of works out and isn't like, or at least is going to work out because you have the Ice Warriors existing as they are on television, which again is something very, very interesting for the story to do because it just sort of um, it it does a lot to basically it does a lot to create just an idea around it. Like you have you have this. You also have the idea that something is happening down in the mines, and the reason, and it's really good. You have sort of this whole. It's not one of the stories where it's a utopia on the surface, but when you get a little bit deeper underneath the surface, things start to not really start to add up. Mainly, the a lot of the a lot of the story, a lot of like, well, why would you not allow people into the mines? What were you hiding in the mines? The mines seem to be um, where things are gonna be going wrong, and that's an interesting idea. Like, what's being hidden down in the mines from the people? Um, why is everyone reliant on life drink? Why have you ruined your planet so much? Why didn't you try to stop it? Which I think might be some sort of commentary on climate change. Um, I can't really tell, uh, just because it's one of those things that you don't really know what could be going on. Um, but you also might not know, what is the end of things. So you could have just the entire story blown out of the water by the reveal of what's in the mines. Other things to note: Zoe gets some really good scenes with Aslor. You have Valtrina locking the Doctor, Jamie, and Zoe up, not knowing Jamie's there. So Jamie ends up getting himself to be coming and going as he pleases, basically before basically before everything else happens. Um, and that is interesting. Um, just with what's going on, the entire story sort of revolves around this, and that's something that I quite like, but I think it's got some issues, and it's a really funny, it's a really good script. So I'll give Lords of the Red Planet episode 3 another 10 out of 10 because it's just been a solid script. All right, it is the 7th of February 2018, and I just finished listening to Lords of the Red Planet episode 4. And I have to say that episode is an episode that essentially brings up a lot of interesting questions in terms of morality. We sort of get the unraveling of Zador's plan here. This is sort of like, which is, really, it's a really good plan. Her plan has been to experiment and cultivate basically what will become the Ice Warriors. Um, and with the Ice Warriors, she's going to try to take over the universe. Because, for the simple reason of that, it's there for the taking. And she's going to strong arm the Doctor, essentially, into telling her what are all the Earth's defenses like, because that's the first planet she's going to be able to conquer. So, what are its strengths and weaknesses, and could I easily go attack it and essentially come out winning, which is, for the most part, an interesting idea. Her plan makes a lot of sense when you look at it logistically, and this isn't, there's because of what what level of evolution the Earth currently is when the story starts. You think she could easily win this, which I think is a really a good sort of thing for the story. You have all these ideas coming together basically to make it basically so there's so there are basically so there are things that the story the episode has. We also get quite a bit of backstory for Zadur and Veltrina. That their father Quendril sort of experimented on them. Basically, as it's like, hey, he tried to make them sort of superior to the rest of the Gondorans, which sort of gives Zadur her megalomaniacal streak. Veltrina was the first experiment, and you could really... They make the idea that she's a failure because she's not as hard, and she's not as hardened as her sister is. She's essentially just there because she's the sweet one, and she still requires the life drink. A lot of the idea was like, well, we'll try it so that there's no more well, there's there's the ideas of things that have that basically have gone around. It's some interesting ideas. It allows actually Fraser Hines to play the Doctor really, really well. Mainly because he basically has to dabble with this idea that that things that he has to help her, and he doesn't really get the choice because Jamie and Zoe are being led into the mines by the newest sort of egg batch of Ice Warriors that she's been experimenting on, and it's just that the experiments basically have to they have to keep going on, and you just have a lot of really, really good ideas. Yeah, so that that being said, I'm gonna give the Lords of the Red Planet episode 4 a 10 out of 10 because again, it's doing some great things with the story. It knows what it wants to be. It knows how to give it going, and it keeps just it. This is a story that sort of gets peeled back after every, just as the layers are revealed. Just to show how complex the story is. So yeah, 10 out of 10. All right, it is the 8th of February, 2018, and I just finished watching Lords of the Red Planet episode 5. This is the episode where Zador basically has a fascist takeover of the entire regime, and it is kind of terrifying. Like, no joke, like everything's, this is the everything's going to shit episode. Which, that makes sense. It's an episode, things are slowly falling apart. Well, not slowly, rather quickly falling apart. And I really think that things might not be turned around. You have Veltrina getting killed by her sister in what is really a terrifying scene. She basically gets drunk to death. She gets really drunk and then dies on the life drink, and it ages her. And it's a really creepy image in the mind. Like it kind of messes with you, just a little bit. Just it's enough to really make you get that little bit queasy. Enough to see things not necessarily from a different point of view, but give you that feeling that hey, things are getting real, and this may end up not necessarily being the best thing. Yeah, so it's kind of horrible. Like everything falls apart, and things just they aren't going anyone's way. This is sort of the things fall apart episode, I think is what I'll call this. The everything is horrible, and we should very, very probably end up as basically we should end this up as a hey, things aren't gonna work out, so we'll just call it what it is. So you sort of you have the story essentially falling apart. It really it feels like the story main isn't not just is just not going to end well, but it also might end up killing our companions, which will be interesting. Obviously they won't actually kill everybody, but it will be an interesting sort of thing nevertheless, because everything is one of those things that just it's got to happen. So I'm going to give Lords of the Red Planet episode 5 another 10 out of 10 because we are just continuing this momentum. Right, it is the 9th of February 2018, and I just finished listening to the final episode of Lords of the Red Planet. And I have to say that this episode is mainly okay. It, as an episode, doesn't really it doesn't really do much for everything But we at least get we get a conclusion to the story, and the conclusion, um, uh, and you really have what is a solid ending to the plot overall. Like you have the Doctor and company essentially trying to race against time to not have the Gondorans die and the Martians actually be killed. You have Rysor actually getting his real moment in the spotlight, to basically to have everything not end completely horribly for him, even if he is kind of he a lot of the story kind of leads with him ends with him dying. Well, at his lowest, he's not exactly the best idea. So you have things that really, they really don't have the best. You really have this fear that everything's going to end. Like, this whole big thing the has essentially, the Doctor, you have essentially the Doctor finding a way to have everyone saved, but that he saves everyone, and he sort of warns them that, hey, maybe don't do this again next time. Like, uh, you know, um, with sort of this everything sort of happens, but you have you have you have everything sort of having everything um you, you know everything sort of ending with just this big, just sort of end, that things aren't going to end quite, not everything's going to be, quite as good as the days before. So you have this feeling that things really, really aren't going to be working out. So it's a very, very good ending. Like, I really, really like what gets done with it. As a story, it's generally pretty good, and you get the feeling that Brian Hales knew what he was doing, and John Dorney does an excellent job of adapting. So you have just this big conclusion. You like seeing Zutter get at her destruction because it's actually Rysor who ends up killing all the Ice Warriors in like a bit of sacrifice, which, if I'm going to be honest, that's really, really solid, because he was just sort of this character who really didn't have a lot to do, and a lot of this is just sort of like his big moment in the sun. So yeah, you have just the feeling that this character really gets to save the day and be the one to save everything, and that's just amazing. And you have just the final lines of the story saying, "Hey, warning against." Essentially, it's a warning against going too far with science without like keeping sort of like, I don't want to say humanity, but like, yeah, emotions and feel, essentially humanity, which is really good. So much so that I will. That being said, I think I'll give Lords of the Red Planet episode 6 another 10 out of 10, because we just finished the story X in an excellent day. Yeah. And that being said, we have reached the end of the story, so that means we will be averaging the scores for each 6 episodes to give the Lords of the Red Planet a final score of 10 out of 10. Thank you for watching this singular installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. Please leave a like, comment, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, get a conversation going in the comments, because that is always quite fun. And please subscribe and share this wherever you can. And join me next time on the Ultimate Doctor Marathon. We will be looking at the penultimate Patrick Troughton story. I can't believe we're already near the end of the Second Doctor with the Space Pirates.